What's up, Star Wars fans? I'm the Master of Movies Glade from the Hills Maniacs, and today I'm going to be bringing you my ranking of the live-action Star Wars Disney Plus series. So, The Acolyte just came out on, or just finished up on Disney Plus, and got a lot of mixed reviews for it. So I kind of wanted to do a ranking video of all six of the live-action Star Wars Disney Plus shows, just to kind of show what my thoughts were on The Acolyte and where it should fit in ranking with the other shows. So we'll start with my least favorite, and then we'll work down to my favorite. And so um, the first one I want to talk about is the Book of Boba Fett, which is my least favorite of the six Disney Plus shows. For it being called the Book of Boba Fett, there wasn't much Boba Fett. I mean, there was a lot more in the later couple of episodes, but Din Djarin from The Mandalorian and Grogu made a few appearances in the show, helped him in the final battle. He ended up fighting against Cad Bane, and and there was other stuff obviously happening throughout the thing. But Boba Fett ended up becoming the basically the ruler of Jabba the Hutt's gang. He came back out of the Sarlacc pit and was trained by Tusken Raiders to fight, and then ended up saving some people on Tatooine, and he ended up killing Bib Fortuna and took over running Jabba the Hutt's group, whatever you want to call them. And so he was basically the head person, even if people didn't want to accept it. It was a good concept for a series, and a good series like to have, showing us what happened between when he falls into the Sarlacc pit in Return of the Jedi, and then when he comes back for this. I thought was pretty cool seeing how he got to where he was at. And we all kind of figured he survived the Sarlacc pit, and so to actually see it was kind of cool. But I was kind of let down by the show itself. It just, for me, it wasn't that good of a show. But they did it to kind of bring him in so that he can be there to help Grogu and Din Djarin in the Mandalorian series, which he does end up helping them at one point, which I think was before the Boba Fett show came out. We saw Boba Fett in the Mandalorian to get his armor back from Din Djarin. So, yeah, for me, it just wasn't that great of a show. The next one I had, again, not really I mean, I liked the show, I guess, kind of like for what it was, but I just didn't think it was that deserving of a show, and that's Andor. I mean, Cassian Andor was never really a character that like I wanted to know his backstory on. I don't know, maybe a lot of people were, but for me, it was just watching Rogue One was enough for me. I really didn't care about how he got to where he was at, but it was a good show overall, and it just, for me, there was something about it that, other than the scenes in the prison with Andy Serkis as Kino Loy, where they found out that they were basically in a camp building parts for the Imperial weapons and stuff. So it would be like for AT-AT walkers or ATSTs, or even parts for the Death Star, which ended up being what some of the stuff was for. But they ended up they were prisoners, and they were making these parts for the Empire, and Andor found out, and they riot against them. But Kino Loy, who's played by Andy Serkis, may or may not have a bigger purpose in the overall Star Wars story. I know they're making a season 2, or at least it's been talked about to make a season 2 for Andor. But again, it's just, for me, it wasn't one of those shows that like I really needed, because Andor just wasn't a character that I really cared about all that much. So that's why it's my second least favorite on this list. The next series I have, and I know some people love this series, but for me it was just kind of all over the place. That's the Ahsoka series. Now, I get it. We needed a series where we kind of focus on Ahsoka now, um, during this time frame, but it was basically just like a live action Rebels season 5, 6, whatever it was, whatever a new season of Rebels would have been. Forget how many seasons there were, but it was basically just a live action season of Rebels. So they go to track down Ezra Bridger, and they they end up running into other villains. I don't really want to spoil the show for you if you haven't seen it, but they end up in. I will spoil this. They end up in another galaxy, which nobody thought was possible. Which I did think was kind of cool that they explored other galaxies. But that was pretty much the only thing that I actually liked about the Ahsoka series. So that's why I still liked it better than Andor because it at least had a purpose because it built off of what Ahsoka did in The Mandalorian and and obviously before that in the Clone Wars and Rebels. So it did kind of build off of that. So I was okay with it for that aspect, and then it was way better than the Book of Boba Fett because the main character was actually in it. So yeah, so that's why it's there. The next one I have is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Um, I thought it was pretty good. The fight scenes between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, and with Hayden Christensen in the suit, playing Darth Vader, like physically, I just thought it was awesome. And the show, it is something because you have that period between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, other than the little bit we see in the Clone Wars, where Obi-Wan and Darth Maul fight again, or not Clone Wars, Rebels, sorry. In Rebels, where Obi-Wan and Darth Maul fight again with the help of Ezra Bridger, other than that, we really don't see Obi-Wan until A New Hope. So we don't know what he's been doing since the end of Revenge of the Sith after he fights Anakin. So it is kind of cool to see, and I like how it shows the I don't want to say the weakness, but like the emotions of Obi-Wan in this series. Like he knows that Anakin's turned to the dark side. He's trying to hide because if anybody finds out he's a Jedi, they'll turn him in or kill him or whatever. So he is trying to hide, which makes sense. And then we get this new set of Inquisitors, which were Force sensitives that were hired by the Empire to track down the remaining Jedi under the control of Darth Vader. And you can see in this box set, Reva is one of them. She was the third sister. That was her name. And they have the Grand Inquisitor that we see in Rebels, as well as a couple other Inquisitors. And I think the Inquisitors were just really cool. Even playing Jedi Fallen Order, the Inquisitors were really cool to see because they all had different abilities and things, even though they're all Force sensitives and they were either taken as Padawans or manipulated to be evil. However, they ended up doing it, but they were all their own person. They were all unique, and some of them were stronger than others, and it was just really cool to see. And they weren't really Sith, so they didn't have to worry about that because they were still under the control of the Empire and under Darth Vader's watch. And Darth Vader hated all of them, which makes sense for Darth Vader. But I really enjoyed that part, watching the Inquisitors and things. And then when Obi-Wan goes to Fortress Inquisitoris, where the headquarters of the Inquisitors are, and he finds basically the bodies of former Jedi and stuff that are kept in some kind of fluid or something, and no one really knows what they were doing with them. They could have been trying to clone them. They could have been using their DNA to make a stronger something. They could have been doing experiments for whatever reason. So that was kind of interesting to see too. So overall, I really like the series. It's not my favorite because it did obviously have its flaws, but it was still a good series for me. And it did fall in that section of uh, Revenge of the Sith to A New Hope to show us some of what Obi-Wan was doing, and then if there's a season two, obviously they'll pick up where it left off and lead up until A New Hope when he goes back into exile. And we got to see Luke and Leia and um, Bail Organa and things. So it was pretty cool, and it was a great way to kind of fill in that gap, at least for the time being, of some of what he was doing between 3 and 4, so that we knew there was something else going on. So that's why I really liked that series. The second one, and if you're keeping track, you probably realize that there's only 2 left because there was only 6. And I know a lot of people hated on it, and I mentioned it at the beginning of the video. I enjoyed The Acolyte, and I mean, for me, it's not better than my number 1, but I enjoyed it. I did, and I don't care. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions, but my opinion is that it was a good show, and so that's where I stand with that. The reason I like it so much is, one, because it takes place before Phantom Menace, so it's in that 100 years when after the Old Republic and into the Newer Republic eras of Star Wars. We get a cameo from Darth Plagueis. They have new characters. We learn how the Jedi acted back then. We get to see Master Kalmaka, who was the first Wookiee Jedi, which was pretty cool. Even though he was only in a couple episodes and only had one fight scene, it was still really cool to see. And the villain of the show, the Stranger, he was awesome. I mean, just his Force abilities, the way he was able to use his helmet to deactivate the blade of a lightsaber and kind of short circuit the lightsaber for a little bit, so that they couldn't use it, was awesome. Master Soul was awesome. He was able to fight without his blade. He was able to fight with his blade. He was cool. I mean, every character in this show really made me excited to watch the show. And people hate on it, and I understand that because there's certain things that don't make sense, or certain things that they didn't like, how they did it, whatever. Especially when it came to Kalmaka not being in it the full time, because this is our first Wookiee Jedi, and he's not in it as much. But I thought it was cool. They had the scenes with the witches, which could lead to the Witches of Dathomir from the Clone Wars at some point. So, I mean, yeah, it was, for me, it was an overall a great show, and I can't wait for season 2. And I love that it's before everything in Star Wars, because it doesn't, I mean, yeah, it has to connect to what happens in the Phantom Menace, but it doesn't have to have Darth Vader, it doesn't have to have Obi-Wan, it doesn't have to have any of the Skywalker saga. Not that I don't love Darth Vader, because trust me, I do. But it doesn't have to connect to any of that specifically, because it can connect to the Phantom Menace, and just go straight into it from there. So I kind of like that this prequel stuff, I guess, is what you could call it. It's a prequel to the prequels. And so I just thought it was awesome. And then, of course, the number 1 on my list is The Mandalorian. They've had 3 seasons of the show, and for me, it is one of the best things Star Wars has ever done. I mean, there were some episodes that were kind of slow and pointless, a lot of talking, whatever, but the show itself grabs you and keeps you intrigued, because you never know what's going to happen next, and you want to see what's going on. And they reintroduced us to some characters, like Bo-Katan Kryze, who's the sister of Duchess Satine from the Clone Wars, and we did see her in the Clone Wars. And then obviously we got some new characters. We got Din Djarin, who is the Mandalorian. You got Grogu, obviously, or Baby Yoda, whichever one you want to call him. We see Moff Gideon, who's a great villain in this series, played by Giancarlo Esposito. Um, he does an amazing job making this character truly evil, and so I I just overall I really enjoyed the show. I like that Din Djarin's whole thing was that he was trying to get back in the good graces of the Mandalorians. They called him a traitor. They called him different things, an outsider and things, because he took his helmet off, and his whole mission was to get back in their good graces. And then we get to see the armorer fight, which was really cool. And I have a theory on her too. So if I film that sometime, stay tuned for that. I don't know if I'm the only one that has this theory or not, but it was just something that popped in my head. But anyway, we'll talk about that some other time. Um, yeah, it's just for me, it's an amazing show, and it really made me remember why I love Star Wars, because it shows like that tell you what Star Wars should be, and that's why I really enjoyed the Mandalorian, and just I mean Grogu, am I right? Baby Yoda. We don't know what the species is called, so we're calling him Baby Yoda, but his name is Grogu, and so yeah, it was just an amazing show, and so anyways, guys, there you go. That is my ranking of the 6 Disney Plus shows. I think there was only 6. If I missed one, I apologize. There's probably one that I didn't enjoy. That's why I missed it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I can't wait for the new seasons of these shows to come out. I know they're making a Mandalorian movie at some point. So I'm looking forward to that. So anyways, thank you for watching this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. And we'll see you guys in the next one. May the Force be with you.